He ain't done with me yet, thank God. All right. Should be good to go. Make sure. Boom. Share. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Thank you guys for being here and rolling with me. And I apologize for the late start. I was in daddy mode this morning, so I had to help my child. Okay, so I'm gonna jump right into this thing. What we're gonna talk about this morning is trying to get our community to be aware of the serious changes taking place in the American landscape. I'm gonna play a few videos, and you're not going to understand most of the videos, but that's the point. The point is that there are things changing rapidly in this country that's going to affect grassroots people, poor people, no matter what they look like, on some very serious levels, because we aren't plugged into what's happening. We're not engaged in what's happening, and most of us don't have a clue. So the first three video clips I'm going to show you. I don't expect you guys to understand what he's saying because most people won't. And I don't expect the people online or people who watch the recording to understand what they're saying or to be aware of is what I mean. And that's the whole point. The point that is that the language that they're using to do what they're doing is foreign, especially when it comes to the economics and the finance, which is a big deal. Ms. Fontenot, you asked me last week about cryptocurrency. The first video that I'm going to play, this dude is talking about cryptocurrency in a space that, if you didn't know any better, you think he was speaking another language, and he is. It's English, but the terms he's using are just phenomenal. So I'm going to show that clip. I'm going to show a clip from a documentary called Bad Faith. If you guys haven't seen it, I suggest you watch it because it is about white Christian nationalism, and they're talking about how they think, why they do what they do, which is why it's so important to have government and church separate, politics and church separate. And then it talks about the importance of think tanks. These conservative white-led think tanks are dangerous to grassroots people, no matter what they look like, because they're not thinking about making the lives of the grassroots people better. They're thinking about more money and more control. So I'm going to play that brief clip, and then I'm going to play a clip from a show called Democracy Now! That I've been following for at least 25, 30 years. And this gentleman just wrote a book, and he's going to break down the three main areas that these groups, the two previous groups, are moving toward. And then I'm going to come back and tell you why it's so important that A, grassroots people know about these things. B, what grassroots Black people need to be doing ASAP. And then C, if it's not too late, give a brief overview of how you guys can join us and what we're doing. I'm going to play the first video clip, and then I'm gonna let. And I think Ms. Fontenot, I've played this one before, so you may. Does this guy look familiar at all? His face? Okay. Well, does that look familiar? Okay. So I'm gonna play this clip, and he's talking about the changes in cryptocurrency and the Trump administration. And I'm gonna come back and ask you guys a very simple question, and your answer is gonna be just like my answer. It's like, what? So check this out, and then I don't think it's 5 minutes. I don't think I'll play the whole thing, but you'll get the gist of what I'm talking about.
The Trump family is literally taking over the financial system. September 1st, 2025. I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible and break this down so the normal everyday public can understand what is actually happening. Today is a historical day, September 1st, 2025, and I want to break this down because there's a lot of confusion. The Trump family launched their World Liberty Financial Token, which is a DeFi platform that the Trump family, Donald Trump Jr., Eric Trump, Barrett Trump, and the Witkoff family, study the Witkoff family, they created a decentralized banking system, which is completely opposite of the old centralized system that we're coming from. In the decentralized system, we're the bank. That's just one thing that's happened since Trump's become president. Now, one side is pushing back heavily because of the conflict of interest. Now, that's kind of weird to say in regards to politics and conflict of interest and investments and getting special treatment. But the Trump family's crypto is all inside of a trust managed by his children. Trump is the president of the United States, and he pushed through really heavily to get the Genius Act approved, which is stablecoin regulation. Follow along with me on here. So with stablecoin regulation, this is where I'm going to help you guys separate the two. Stablecoins are backed 1-to-1 by the US dollar. They're not really investments. It's where you would store, like for example, if you profit in crypto, you would store it in USDT, USDC, RLUSD, which is Ripple stablecoin, USD1, which is Trump's stablecoin from World Liberty Financial. So today what went live is their DeFi token that's connected to World Liberty Financial. So that's a tradable token that you can trade and make money off of. USD1 is a stable coin that if you made profits in that, you could store your profits in that that's backed 1-to-1 by the dollar. Now here's where the complete rewiring and the taking over of the financial system in a decentralized way is happening with the Trump family. Now remember, they got pissed because they got debanked because of their political position. So now what they've done is they've created their own decentralized platform where we are the bank. So they got World Liberty Financial, which is live right now on exchanges like Kraken, and Coinbase just announced that you can trade it on Coinbase. Then you have USD1, which is a stable coin, but here's the caveat. And I'm gonna go a little bit deeper with this, pay attention. I'm gonna teach you the game. I'm a Warren Buffett style investor. This is why I don't get fudded out. This is why I don't pay attention to hype. This is why I stay in the markets. I don't try to time them. I have time in the markets. Is what do stable coins use to be stable? US treasuries, bonds. What was happening to our bond market? It was getting destroyed. And what do they use? Short-term treasuries. And so stable coins use short-term treasuries to keep them stable. USD1, USDT, USDC, RLUSD. Let's take it a little bit deeper. So Bo Hines, who's the executive director for digital assets with Trump, just stepped down to go work with Tether to work on the US relations. But wait a minute, it goes deeper. Howard Lutnick, who is the Commerce Secretary for America, who is right next to Trump all the time, is going to be a billionaire in Bitcoin this year who ran Cantor. Cantor is a cryptocurrency company that gives loans to cryptocurrency banks. He passed it down to his son when he got into the presidency, into the president's White House, excuse me. So his son Brandon Lutnick runs Cantor, and Cantor teamed up with Tether and SoftBank with a $3.6 billion crypto venture. Bo Hines stepped down, went to go bring Tether into the US. Cantor teamed up with SoftBank with a $3.6 billion crypto venture. And SoftBank just made a huge investment last week, 12 days ago in Intel. And then the US government just took a stake in Intel. If you can't see that the Trump family in this presidency is taking over the financial system, we're moving from a centralized to a decentralized system. By the time all the dust settles, I believe the Trump family will be one of the richest families in the world. The biggest difference is we get to play in the playground this time. So instead of scrolling aimlessly, study your ass off. That's what we did. Position yourself in a few good investments. Don't chase everything. Stop chasing meme coins and get rich quick and hype. Warren Buffett doesn't do that. Ray Dalio doesn't do that. Kathy Woods doesn't do that. Robert Kiyosaki doesn't do that. They're hyper focused on a couple assets. And as Warren Buffett says, you pick a couple of winners, you'll be very wealthy. And remember, it's not timing the market, it's time in the market. And if you can't be patient for the next 4 to 6 years, you ain't gonna make it. But if you can remain stoic and you can remain calm, and you can work to rewire the foundation so your family can be in a different situation, you will be the generation shifter in your family. Pay attention. Breadcrumbs are everywhere. Warriors, rise. Get your shit together.
All right. So did any of that make any sense to either one of you? It makes sense to you a little bit, well, at all? Because when I first watched it, I had to watch it again immediately.
Yeah.
And then after I watched it again, watch it the second time, I was taking notes of everything he said, the terms that he was using that I did not know what they were. I think it was about 23 things he said. I'm like, what the hell is that? You know, and then I watched it the third time to make sure my 23 was right. Then I started researching those 20 things. So you guys go to a lot of community stuff. You guys are plugged in, you guys are engaged, you guys volunteer, you guys are part of organizations. Of everything that you guys do in the community, who's talking about that? Nobody. Well, nobody. Right. So the point is that if the financial system of the world is changing, if the economic system of the world is changing, and we're not involved in the change, if our churches, our civic clubs, our super neighborhood organizations, our nonprofits, our community organizations, if the people that we volunteer with, the people that we go to for information, people that we trust, if they're not talking about this kind of information, then where's that going to leave the masses of our people and other poor grassroots people? That's a problem. So we have to understand that things are changing, and as usual, those changes are not I don't know what it is, and those changes are not and those changes are not pro us. If we don't understand that and get serious about learning about these changes and how they're going to affect us, then we simply, again, we're going to be a permanent underclass in the country that was built on the backs of our people. So that's the first thing. Economics and finance changing across the board. If nobody's talking about it, how are we going to win? How are we going to survive? How are we going to do? How are we going to build? How are our kids going to make it if the whole language and the system is changing and nobody is talking about it? Ms. Partner?
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
I understood he talked about the bonds.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
Municipal bonds, yeah.
other things.
Uh-huh.
Never did mention CDs.
Right. Yeah.
I wonder what.
I don't know. Maybe it's because he only had 5 minutes. I don't know, but that's a part of it as well. So we have to understand it, and we already don't do. As a country, we don't save our money, but as a community, we not only not do we do not do a good job of saving, but we don't do a good job of investing either. So we should have CDs that we're investing in. We should have municipal bonds that we're investing in. But along with that, we have to understand how things are changing so we can invest in those things as well. And the good thing about cryptocurrency and everything he was saying is that all of it is still new.
Uh-huh.
It's new for everybody. So if we can get people that look like us to teach us, like we were talking last week, Sister AJ was talking to Sister Yvonne about starting not an investment club, but an investment group that she can teach people how to invest. That's important. And we need to do that not just on the traditional level, like CDs and municipal bonds, but also on in the crypto space, because so much is changing. And Ms. Farno, I mentioned this to you last week on the drive back. And I was going to show a clip of that, but I didn't want to show too many clips this morning. When I talked about they want to move toward a digital currency system where all of your money is electronic. And if you don't do what they want you to do, be it get a vaccination, be it not protesting, be it not shopping at a certain time, certain location, they want to have the power, and they're moving toward this to turn your money off. And they not only want to turn your money off, but they want to turn your digital self off. What does that mean? Your digital self is how you interact with things online, how you pay your bills, how you watch your Netflix, how you stream for information, how you research. They want to be able to control Brother Will's digital self. So not only can you not spend your own money, but you can't even operate on the internet like you normally would. That's the kind of system they want to move toward. And the last video that I'm going to show is going to tie these two things together as it relates to why they do what they do as far as how they think, their philosophy, their ideology, but how they're doing this. And this morning's Thursday morning breakfast is important because I want our people to not only understand what they think and how they maneuver per that thought and that philosophy, but more importantly, how we need to be moving, because they're going to do what they're going to do. And we got to get to the point where if they make a chess move, then we make a chess move. But we can't make a chess move if we're playing marbles and they're playing chess, which is part of the problem. So this video clip is from the documentary Bad Faith. Again, if you haven't seen it, you need to watch it because it explains this whole white Christian nationalism movement that has really taken over the country. And when he says some of the things that he's said, especially when it comes to the politics, you guys will get because you'll be able to see it because you guys are involved with grassroots politics. So Bad Faith. Yes, man. BAD Faith. FAITH. Bad Faith. And fortunately, somebody put it on YouTube, so it's free. You can just go watch it. Yeah, and I recorded it because we were doing a citywide tour trying to show this to as many nonprofits and churches as possible. But surprise, surprise, not a lot of people paid attention. Check this out.
The White House people who were sent here, they ran against Washington to get elected, but they have now been co-opted by Washington. I'm not the kind of conservative that says preserve the status quo, because I think the status quo in large measure is awful. Rather, let us change the premises upon which we're operating.
Paul Weyrich realized the Republican Party was not committed to his goal of a theocratic America. He wanted revolution, not accommodation. In 1981, Weyrich co-founded the Council for National Policy, a secretive network to spearhead the Christian nationalist movement. 40 years later, it has become one of the most influential political organizations in the country.
Paul Weyrich was grand architect of the movement. He talked about the way that his vision of religion needed to dominate every aspect of American culture and society. They realized that this was going to go against the majority of Americans, but they felt they had the right and the obligation to do that. Now, why did they feel entitled to dominate American society? Why should these people have dominion over the rest of us? A lot of the Council for National Policy's vision was rooted in a form of Calvinism, where the belief was that God favored certain people and that was reflected in their level of prosperity. So if you were a very rich person, that's because God had predestined you for salvation. And on the other hand, if you were a poor black single mother in Milwaukee, that was because God had predestined you to be that, and he did not favor you with the wealth and riches.
I don't think we have to apologize for God's blessings, but money is not the focus of our life.
Isn't it easy to say that if you're the only rich guy standing there?
It takes a lot of money to do what we do.
You said that you don't like to fly commercial because you don't want to get into a tube with a bunch of demons. Do you really believe that human beings are demons?
No, I do not. And don't you ever say I did.
You need to send in $35,000. You need to send in that $100,000 check. If you do not write that P.O. box and you do not call that toll-free number, you will never see sustainment in your life and your dream will die.
So their whole worldview was to increase income disparity as a gesture of God's will. A lot of their writings sound as though they believe they have a direct line to God.
At the core of Weyrich's political ambitions to overturn democracy was Rousas Rushdoony's vision of a theocratic government.
If democracy exalts man to the place of God and the will of man to the place of God, it will fail. And it is failing today.
One of the very foundations of Rushdoony's theology, often called dominionism, is to try to reconstruct the nation along Christian lines, according to the Bible, according to biblical foundations. And democracy, especially liberal democracy, isn't really necessary to that. As a matter of fact, liberal democracy is kind of the enemy.
And you think democracy has substituted what for the kingdom of God?
The will of the majority. The will of the majority.
If we love these liberals as we must, if we love these people who are, despite the terrible pain that it takes to even say it, helping to murder the unborn as we must, then we want what is right for them. And what is right for their immortal souls is to get them out of public policy in this country.
In Paul Weyrich's eyes, the goal was winning. The goal was conservative Christians in positions of power and being able to dictate how things go in our country. not ensuring that fair elections happen.
I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections, quite candidly, goes up as the voting populace goes down.
He said our leverage in the election goes up. Our leverage in the elections go up as the voting populace goes down. We talked about that last week. Every single election, they're trying to do more and more to make it more difficult for people to vote. Why? Because they understand that if the majority votes, then they're going to lose because their platform is not for the majority, it's for the minority. I watched a clip yesterday, day before yesterday, where you have military generals telling their troops, military generals are reporting that some of their troops are being told, U.S. generals are being told that it is God's, God wants Israel to win. God wants Israel to destroy these other people. God wants Israel to have everything it needs. Forget the hell that Israel causes with these other groups of people. The religiosity mindset is dangerous because it's based on one group's belief in one book, and it ignores everybody else. And when you have those people in power, like right now, this country is being led by people who consider themselves to be Christians. But what they're doing is not for the betterment of mankind, it's for the betterment of a small group, and that group is who they are a part of. So, like I asked you guys the first time, given all that you do in the community, all the meetings, all the activity, the volunteering, have you ever heard anybody talk about this kind of thing in any of your organizations or groups? Has anybody ever talked about the importance of and the dangers of think tanks? Anybody else? Well, so yep, you guys heard about Project 2025. We talked about it a lot. Project 2025 was developed and led by over 243 think tanks. 99.9% of them were white and conservative Christian. I found 2 that were black, but you always gonna find some sellouts among everything. But the point is that, and this most recent version is the 5th version. The first one came out with Reagan, and before that they're calling it something else. And the whole crack cocaine epidemic thing, that was a part of their plan to make money and to move certain agendas forward. But most of us don't have a clue about that stuff. So again, if we're not paying attention to how they think when they play chess, if we're not paying attention to how they think when they play chess and how those moves affect us, if we're always maneuvering on the checkerboard or the marbles, what's marble? Marble dirt. I don't know what marbles played on the ground or whatever it's called. You know, and if they're maneuvering up here and we're down here, how are we ever gonna win? And the point is that you have people, poor white people, buying into a philosophy that's detrimental to their own progress and survival because their pastor told them to vote a certain way. And black people do the same thing. I believe that a lot of these people who voted against DEI, they thought DEI meant black because they weren't paying attention to what Trump was saying. They weren't paying attention to the moves they were making. Probably very few of them knew anything about Project 2025, and so they wouldn't have voted the way they did. Now they're suffering because of their ignorance. And not just poor white people, grassroots people across the board, because they for whatever reason, Lord have mercy, they hear what Trump is saying, have not attached the fact that Trump is a constant liar. You can't believe anything he says because he always lies. And they didn't marry that with his past. Now not all those benefits that they needed, all of those services that they needed, them, veteran family members, children, that stuff is being cut out. And it's not coming back if these people continue to win. And they have a plan. That's why they go after the vote, because they understand the only thing that can stop us from making sure our agenda comes to fruition is voting. And that's why every single election they go after the vote, because like the dude said, we don't want a bunch of people voting. And this was that video that was in the 80s. And they still have that mindset now where if we get a lot of people to vote, then we're gonna lose because our plan isn't for everybody. And of course, people still haven't gotten that understanding, which is why we still vote against our own best interests. And it's important that all grassroots people, no matter what they look like, poor white, poor black, poor Asian, poor Mexican, you gotta understand how these people think. You gotta understand how they maneuver, because if you don't, you will vote against your own best interests and put yourself in the position of suffering, because they're not about making sure that the masses have what they need. They're about making sure that their small group has what it needs. Okay, and the last video clip I'm going to show before I start giving these solutions is this is a clip, and I've played this one before. I'm not sure if I played it in its entirety, but this is a gentleman who wrote a book called Crack Up Capitalism, and he's talking about the three main things that they want to do to ensure that the future, the kind of America that they want to create, he's going to give an understanding of what that looks like. And if you're paying attention, you can see it. If you're paying attention, if you're watching, if you're listening to listening for certain buzzwords, all of these video clips need to be delved into deeper. But of course, we can't do it here. And I got to figure out, like, there was a point when we were doing the Bad Faith citywide tour that I got to figure out, how can I get more people to plug into a longer session as we talk about these kinds of things? Because again, most people, black, white, or otherwise, don't know, because we're not the spaces where we go to get the information, be it a church, civic club, or whatever, they're not giving out the information because they don't know. And that's why we keep losing. So this is really eye-opening for me, especially the last thing that he says, and I'll tell you why it's scary when he's done.
Professor of International History at Boston University, author of Crack Up Capitalism. His new piece is Speed Up the Breakdown. It's about Musk's push to do that. We welcome you to Democracy Now! Professor Slobodian, if you can start off by telling us what Elon Musk is doing, this whole question over the last 2 days. What is his role? Does he run the Department of Government Efficiency that President Trump says, when questioned about it, because court papers came out that indicated he didn't, he just said, well, what counts is he's a patriot.
Yeah, I mean, I might have something to say about the patriot question later, but I think that first, I think it's helpful to kind of dispel some of the fog of war and the sort of chaotic, anarchistic impressions that we're getting out of Washington these days, with a sense of what the actual lineages are of the political projects we're seeing unfolding here. Because I think, and what I wrote about in the piece is, I think there's basically three somewhat distinct political projects underway here that haven't really had the chance to weave together and have the space close to power the way that they have now in the past. The first one is the idea that the government should be run like a corporation, right? There's a kind of a core Clintonite notion here that we should treat citizens like consumers. We should, expose bureaucracy to the same kind of competitive pressures and kind of hallmarking and benchmarking that private companies are. And then you have to go in and sort of act like an asset stripping private equity firm and peel out all the waste and abuse and put back in sort of more efficient processes. That's how Musk sold Doge to the American people in late 2024. And that's actually why even some Democrats were on board with the Doge caucus already in December still. So there's something kind of normal about that. And there's a reason why Musk has been posting pictures of Clinton and Gore saying, hey, I'm just doing that sort of business here. But obviously, things have gone to another level. And the second, I think, strain of politics that's plugged in here is closer to that of Russell Vought at the Office of the Management of Budget, one of the people who was critical to the Project 2025 document. And that is a more often Christian conservative sort of think tank vision of deconstructing the administrative state, not to make it more efficient and to cost cut to get to more efficiency and sort of productivity, but because you think certain things that the government has been doing are fundamentally illegitimate. So there should be no kind of redistributive role for the government. There should be no role covering things like the protection of the environment or the provision of special education, or the provision of sort of projects towards gender equity, anti-racism, and things of that nature. So the idea there is you permanently sort of hobble the Leviathan of the state and, hack back some of its capacity, send that back to the states, and produce a government that governs intensively but not extensively. So, border, military budget, maybe federal abortion bans, but all the other.
And that's what they're doing right now. That's why they're cutting out so much from these. And I'll show you the 15 departments that they're targeting. They're cutting out these social service programs now because they're trying to create that kind of government that isn't involved with the welfare of the people, but is about keeping law and order. Their agenda is different than ours. And again, if we're not realizing that, we won't vote, and then we'll continue to complain because we don't understand what's happening.
Sort of post-civil rights, Great Society programs get sort of permanently euthanized. The third strain, though, that sort of gets to some of the more extreme dynamics that people have been picking up on is what I think you can call right-wing accelerationism. So this is a kind of very online ideology, often associated with people like Curtis Yarvin and Nick Land. And there the idea is that you don't just sort of trim the state or kind of streamline it, but you shatter it all together. And so there's a vision of total decentralization of sovereignty back to smaller kind of fortified private enclaves, turning the United States into a kind of a patchwork of fiefdoms or sovcorps, as Yarvin calls them, where people are sort of, opting in, paying to get into gated communities, and then sort of in zero-sum social Darwinist competition with the world beyond them. And that's quite sci-fi and kind of speculative. But at times, I think that the sort of sense of panic that we feel is people wondering whether you can just delete all of the kind of capacities of the state and expect to be able to plug them back in at any level afterwards, or if there is a kind of irreversible process of dismantlement happening here.
And so, Professor Slobodian, we'll get.
So have either one of you guys seen the television series The Handmaid's Tale by any chance? The Handmaid's Tale? That's fine, no? All right, so it is about that last thing that he said. It's about people who have a certain religious ideology using their money to create city-sized spaces that they can control and building walls, physical walls around that space. If you're inside that space, you live a certain way, and if you're outside that space, you're on your own. So they call it technocracy, a technology-driven, science-driven society with a religious ideology attached to it. So if the economic system is changing, if the social safety net is being cut out, if the education system is being attacked, if the benefits for Medicaid, Medicare, veterans, kids who got disabilities, people who are older, if all that stuff is being taken away, and the people with money are creating their own spaces to live in, and if you don't work for that company, you're going to be on the outside looking in. With the advent of AI taking over so many jobs, if you're poor, no matter what you look like, what's your life going to be like? And if you're poor, no matter what you look like, what's the life of your kids going to be like? America is rapidly moving toward a caste system where if you're poor, you're going to die poor because there's no way to be unpoor. And those systems exist in other countries. What that last thing he said as far as them wanting to create those kinds of societies, they've already done it in other countries. And with this administration, they can do whatever they want because Trump is making money. What that first guy said about Trump and the cryptocurrency, they've done away with regulations to stop people from literally stealing from the people. They've done away with those regulations because they know they want to steal. And that's what they're doing. I think as of right now, I don't have the number, but as of right now, Trump is the richest president in the history of the country because no president has been so thirsty to make money. And I'm sure all of them have had business interests and made money. I expect that. But he's gone over and above. And I'm not sure if he's I'm not sure if he's in the multi-billions or the trillions yet. But they're doing a lot to take money from people that need it. Like this whole the whole thing about Project 2025, they said that we gotta cut back so that we can pay our debt and take care of the people. The people that they want to get a tax cut to don't need a tax cut because they're already multimillionaires or billionaires. They're doing that so that they can give the people with money more money that will allow them to continue doing what they're doing. And they do what they do because they believe their philosophy is like their first video, second video, their concept is God has made me better than you. Now they don't talk about the cheating, they don't talk about the theft, they don't talk about the lying. And what's really crazy is that a lot of them are in the Epstein files. I mean, literally. I have a story in this was an ongoing story in the digital magazine, and it's a video. And it's showing all these people in the top 100 people, and they're from all over the world. But these people are connected. You know, we might think that the Democrats are on our side, Republicans are against us, Christians are good, Catholics are bad. We might think whatever, but all of them go to the same meetings. All of them go to the same people for their money. So as grassroots people, we have to be independent in everything that we do across the board, because when we're not independent, we get controlled by people who don't have our best interests at heart. And it's obvious when you look at what's happening in the country and you pay attention to how many things are being taken away from those that need it most, and how, again, the social safety net is just being torn apart. So I'm gonna play one more video clip. I think it's about maybe 2 minutes, and I'm gonna come back and wrap this thing up real quick with solutions. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about the solutions. I'm going to keep it very high level. But as I give you the solution, it'll be clear enough as it relates to what we need to be doing, because it's a layered approach as it relates to what we need to be doing. I can't cover it right here because we don't have that kind of time. All right, so I'm gonna play this one video, and I think I played this before for you guys as well. But these two brothers, Professor James Small and Charles Barron, they give a good understanding as far as my perspective and what I believe of where the Black community is, how we exist in this country, and if poor Black people have this kind of existence, then poor white people, poor Asians, poor Mexicans have the same kind of existence. But my focus is our people first, because we got to get our own house in order before we try to help somebody else's house. And once we get our house in order, then we can show them how to take care of their house. But we got to do ours first, because we are a naturally loving people as the base of who we are. That's who we are, naturally loving people. But that natural love has hurt us because we've been too busy trying to make sure everybody's taken care of, or everybody's taking advantage of us. That's why more white women benefit from DEI and affirmative action than Black people, although it was meant for Black people, because we're too busy. So we got to change that, and then we can show other people. So these two brothers give a very good example of our reality right now in 2026. And I'm showing this because I want to give a premise as to where we are and what we need to do moving forward.
We got to understand colonialism. We live in Black communities in America are domestic colonies of a colonial capitalist system. And here's where they get you. They get you focusing on racism. And we have to, but racism is the ideology of capitalism. It is not the system. The system is capitalism, and then you have a socialist system, and communism is the utopian system that doesn't exist. You have communist parties and countries, but you don't have a communist government. So when we look at every Black community, what is a domestic colony? A colony is when a foreign nation takes over a sovereign state and brings in its military and extracts from its natural resources from that land and the labor, slave labor. That's what colonialism is. So domestic colonialism means that we, in Black communities across this country, we don't have anything like Tulsa or Rosewood in the 21st century. There's no Black community where we're in control of the land, the resources, the means of production, all of the social, cultural institutions like they had in Rosewood in the 1920s. So now we have none of that. We are over $1 trillion consumer market, and yet we have no community in the country that looks anything like Rosewood or Tulsa of the 1920s. And here we are in 2023. So
let me put a
when
slick definition on it, Charles, Brother Barron. You know, somebody asked Malcolm X, said, Brother Minister Malcolm X, what do you mean by black nationalism? And to just capitalize what you said, he said, you must control the land, labor, and resources, the economic, politics, and culture where you live. We control none of that where we live. And that just capsulizes it. And,
Right.
and when we think of it, here we're expected to spend $2 trillion this year in consumer dollars. We
Wow.
control no land.
Wow.
We control no labor. We control no resources. We do not control the economics, the politics, or the culture where we live. All right. And then we, by definition, we can't even call where we live communities, because communities presuppose that you control those things.
Okay. All right. So would any one of you disagree with that assessment and description of where we are in this country right now? Yeah. Okay. So we have to understand in March of 2026, we got to understand that things are changing. Those changes are not pro us. Those changes will never be pro us. Those changes are not designed to be pro us. Those changes aren't created by us. Like Brother Marcus Garvey said, if it's not coming from an African mind, it's not good for African people, and it's meant to benefit other people. So this is I did a 5-part Zoom series for 5 Sundays. It was called Building Within Project 2025. And I was focusing on 5 critical areas that I'm about to get into as it relates to what we need to be doing as a community. And we need to be doing these things because of these brief video clips that I've shown you guys. And the things that are happening are only going to get worse, because the idea is to not only keep Black people, poor people in these colony type systems, but to totally make it complete hell for you to survive in that system. They want dog eat dog, but they want dog eat dog for us, not for them. They want to make sure that what we need to survive, we don't have, and that's why they are cutting everything out. So I did this 5-part series focusing on agriculture, security, local business, politics, and youth. There's a lot that we need to do. But those 5 things are critically important because everybody eats. We got to be able to protect what we want to eat. We got to be able to control the economics in our communities. We got millions flowing through from other people, taking it outside the community. We got to be engaged locally with politics. If you don't have a local power base politically, you're losing because you don't control anything. And we got to prepare our youth to take over what we are trying to do right now. We got to prepare them to lead. So if we're not operating in those 5 areas, it's checkmate. It's done. And again, based on that last video and the other video clips, who's talking about this? Who's seriously dealing with it? Who's bringing it up? Who's even having brief conversations to try and get people to tune in a little bit? And I find things online, obviously, of people doing these things, but usually when I find someone doing them, they're doing them for personal gain. They're charging you to teach you a thing. They're charging you to be a part of things. And unfortunately, Black people need a lot when it comes to spiritual development, but we're not going to pay for it because we don't understand that we need it. So if we can't charge for that, that has to be supplemented somehow, some way, so that people can get what they need because they don't know they need it. If we control more of the economics in our communities, we can supplement those kinds of services that people do provide because Black people aren't going to pay for it right out. So if we don't have the right minds connecting to the people, they'll always try and make money off the people, which is another problem. We have very, very, very poor leadership when it comes to those who look like us, who's supposed to be helping us. That's why we're pushing so hard with this HISD sexual predator cover-up thing, because we, as a community, we expect people who look like us to do right by us, but they don't. Constantly, they don't. And if we don't realize that just because they look like us doesn't mean that they are us, and if we don't have a good screening process to make sure that they're the right us, then we're gonna continue to lose. Because people that look like us, they do sell us out. Okay, so the concerns of what we got to deal with are many, obviously, but we have to mobilize, organize, prioritize, and build for our own power. So what we are focusing on people doing right now, we want you to start with your family, start with your street in your neighborhood, and we want to focus on, again, those 5 key areas. The first one is food. How do we ensure, how can we ensure that everyone eats over the next 12 to 18 months? Because everything you guys just saw, they're looking at rapid changes in American society over the next 12 to 18 months, 1.5, 2 years out. When I first started my organization, Black Gold Nation, I wrote my book in 2017 is when I officially started it. And at that time, I was saying we had maybe 8 to 10 years to put something in place that's on automatic pilot that's going to take care of our people. That's down to about 3 or 4 years. And with how rapidly they're moving, we might have 2.5, 3 years. So we got to find a way to feed ourselves that isn't coming from other people. Because if they want to create a society and or a system where the haves and have-nots become greater, we have it, y'all don't, and we don't care. You're on your own. If that's what they're doing, and it's obvious that that's what they're doing, then we have to say, okay, I see what they're doing. I understand that chess move. Here is our chess move in kind. And that first chess move has to be food, because everybody eats, ideally 3 times a day. So if we're not focusing on how we're gonna feed ourselves in our own communities first, then again, we're losing, because they're gonna eat and they're taken care of, right? So that's the first thing, is food. Second thing is security, because everything we've done in this country since we've been here, every righteous move we've made, every good move we've made, every community-based decision we've made, they've either targeted for destruction or destroyed it. Now, that doesn't mean that they've done all the destroying, because again, people that look like us sell us out. So a lot of people that are blessed with melanin think like white people, so they also sell us out. So that's a problem, sure, but we don't have the power to do the kind of things that they do. For example, the crack cocaine epidemic. We don't have the resources to move crack cocaine from Colombia to America. The gangs that exist, we're not making these guns and we're giving them to our children. That's coming from somebody else. So we don't have certain powers to move in a certain way. And when we've had our Black Wall Streets, when we've had our Tulsas, when we've had our communities that were self-sufficient, they were wiped out by people who had the power to wipe them out. So security is not just securing the food that we grow, it's securing our communities. And that's not just physical security, that's spiritual security, that's mental security, that's economic security, that's agricultural. We have to make sure that we have layers of security around everything that we do, because history has proven that it's not a matter of if they're going to try to destroy it, it's when and how. And unfortunately for us, they send people that look like us to infiltrate and destroy it. And because we are caught up with identity politics, we're caught up with religiosity, we refuse to look at the evidence, although the evidence is glaring, it's there, because we like a person, we don't want to believe it. We take their word for a certain thing, despite the evidence being there. So we got to understand that we got to grow our own food, and we got to protect what we grow across the board, because they destroy stuff. And the third thing we got to do with economic finance, again, we have to find a way to minimize the export of the millions that flow through our communities. We have yet to come to the conclusion that the only reason so many other people come from other countries to America, to the Black community, open the business and make millions, that only happens because we give them the millions. We haven't thought that, hell, we can run a convenience store. We can have our own Timmy Chance. Call it Pookie Chance, I don't know. We can have everything that they have, we can have, but we have gotten out of the mindset of business ownership and control, especially in our own spaces. And of course, that don't mean that Black people don't own businesses, because we know they do. Hell, we're sitting in one. But we got to have these kinds of businesses we're at Gatlin's Barbecue off 6th and Ella in Houston, Texas. We got to have Gatlin's barbecues in the community that can compete with a Timmy chain. It has to be good food. It has to be affordable. It has to be relatively fast. I'm not sure how fast Timmy Chan's. It's been years since I've been there. But we have to compete with the businesses that exist in our own spaces. And if we don't do that, then the millions are going to continue to flow through the community. And again, we're not talking about something that would be nice to do. We're not talking about something that would be helpful if we did. We're talking about our survival in this country. Because again, other groups are moving to making sure that we are a permanent underclass, and we don't have to be. But if we don't have people that are serious about leading the community in economics and finance, so that first clip, everything that white guy was talking about, we got people that look like us that are teaching us about all that. And fortunately for us, that we do have people on that level operating in multiple spaces. We just make sure that more people are paying attention. And if we don't have that, of course, we're going to continue. And I challenge both of you here and everybody at home or wherever you decide to watch this, everything that you've seen, I want you to think the same questions I've asked Ms. Fontenot and Brother Wu. I want you to think who in your circle is talking about any of this. And however long you've been in your circle, has anybody ever talked about any of this? So if our circles of influence, if our circles of education, if our circles of information, if our circles aren't talking about this, then how the hell are we going to survive it? And again, these people are not playing games with us at all. And I'll give a brief example of that in a minute. Okay, so after economic and finance, we got to have political power on the local level, because this whole thing is about a fight for resources. If you don't have local political control, then the resources that your people need is going to go to somebody else. This is a fight for resources. And those who understand that, they make sure that they are fighting in a way that's going to help them win, so that the resources they want, they can get for their community. Everybody takes advantage of our communities because we don't have enough people standing up to fight for the community. Again, we got people that look like us, but hell, we got an issue that I learned about most recently with a park. I think it's Edgewood Park in District D. Is that right? Edgewood Park. They've been promised money for at least 15, 20 years. At least.
And we had the money.
And had the money. But the money never makes it where it's supposed to go, so that we can get what we need, because people who look like us, some don't look like us, they redivert that. And that don't just happen with a park. That happens across the board.
Yes.
But what's so scary now is that it's not just happening. This has always been this way in this country, but now it's more blatant with this president. We're not just being attacked locally. We're being attacked on the state and the federal level. The reason why the federal government was so important in the civil rights era with the passing of the civil rights bill is that the federal government said to the states, you can't do this. You can't discriminate based on race. That's against the law. So the federal government came in and put certain protections in, and we were able to make some progress. This administration is cutting they've cut all that out. To hell with all that. We're going to give power back to the states. Federal government going to take a step back. States, do what you want. That hadn't been good for us. So if we're not mobilizing and organizing locally where we live, we're always going to be at the whim of other people. And history has proven that those other people don't give a damn about us. So we got to take local politics seriously, because if we can't control those local resources, checkmate. Yeah. Okay, and then the last thing is our youth. If we're not preparing our youth to lead from a position of power, then what are we doing? I talked about briefly, I told you guys briefly about a lot of things, but there's a group called, I thought it was the Veterans of Foreign Wars, but that's not it. It's another group. I can't remember the name of them, but they have a camp that they've been running since the 1930s called Boys State and Girls State. Boys State and Girls State, where they teach kids how to run cities. Since the 1930s. Boys State, Girls State. Since the 1930s. Matter of fact, I won't do it now. So here you have these other groups, understand the importance of politics, and they're sending their kids to camps to learn how to run cities, and here we are saying vote no matter. And as you heard the white guy say, we don't want everybody to vote. Because if everybody votes, we lose. So if they don't want everybody to vote, of course they're not going to tell you why you need to vote. They're not going to educate you on the importance of civics. And they most certainly aren't going to create laws to make it easier for you to vote, because they don't want you to vote. So if we don't understand how they play chess, and we don't understand the chess moves that they make, we're going to continue to lose. So what we have to do is create a trust in the community. And that's not just trust where people believe that we're going to do right by them. We need to have contractual agreements with the people that we're working with, so that everything that we create as an organization, the community benefits from. So these are, and I'm gonna zoom through these because we low on time. Yeah, ooh, we late. Okay, so these are and again, there's a lot of things that we need to do, but these are the 5 areas that we want to focus on now, moving forward, that we've been focusing on for almost a year. In food, we gotta have micro farms, small farms that exist that can feed the community. We gotta have a local food hub, a place where food that's grown can be processed, packaged, and resold, both in Black and white owned businesses. And we got to have community-owned restaurants. We got to make sure that we can capture that multi-billion-dollar food industry. We got to get a piece of that. And since we're giving to, we most certainly can control some of it. Security. We got to have people that are willing to secure the community on the street level and on the neighborhood level. Economics and finance. We got to find a way to partner with every business in the community, no matter what they look like, and get them to give something back to the community, because the community is going to die if that does not happen. We got to get them to realize, look, you can work with us or against us, but if you agree to work against us, you're going to go out of business, because we're going to starve you out, because we're going to label you an economic and financial predator, and we're going to do every single thing we can to ensure you get no more Black business at all in this Black community. We got to do that across the board. So we got to find a way to partner with local businesses, and we have already begun to work on that. We got to invest in our own businesses. We got to create our own credit unions and invest in our own business ventures. And I'm not talking about mom and pop type businesses. I'm talking about businesses that can scale, businesses that can grow. So if the first video clip, the white guy talking about all this cryptocurrency, economic, blah, 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 that's the wild west of economics and finance right now. That means that it's open to anybody. So we got to get some people that look like us. They understand that we can go get this. We just got to be properly trained. And we have a few, but we don't have enough. That's really training people on how to do this thing. And then the HBCUs. As a community, we have to become more intentional about partnering with our institutions, because that's where the leadership can be trained. That's where the business leaders can be trained. That's where the think tank leaders can be trained. But as of right now, we don't have a revolutionary survival relationship with our HBCUs, because most of the people who graduate from our HBCUs, they go to white corporate America to get a job, which is understandable because we're not hiring on that level. So we have to create opportunities where they come to the community to get employment to help make the community bigger, better, and stronger. And if we do this thing the right way, we'll not only have more than enough money to pay our own engineers, our own businesses, our own think tanks. We have change left over because there's so much money that's available for us to go get. Okay, political power. We got to have leadership that comes from the community, that understands the community. As far as I'm concerned, if you're not a Travis McGee type, sorry, brother, it is what it is, that you're going to work in the community for the community regardless. If you're not what's Carisha Rogers? Is that Carisha's last name?
Yes.
If you're not a Carisha Rogers, who's going to work in the community for the community no matter what. Sister Ebony Rain Eatman, if you're not going to work in the community for the community no matter what, then you're probably not a good person to be running for office that we need to be voting for. Because if you show up at election time, and like Miss Ruth always says, hey, Miss Fontenot, I don't know you. And I don't know you, and even you, Brother Will, I don't know you because I ain't seen you. If we have to ask that question come election time, we don't need to be voting for you. So the leadership that's going to represent us politically, we need to know, because we've seen them for years. Right? And if they're not coming from us, they can't be of us, and they can't be of us, and they can't represent us. And even if we have seen them for years, when there's evidence and proof that they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing, you got to go. There has to be a process in the community, led by the community that's not only going to vet people, but it's going to let people know you didn't pass the test, you got to go. And not only do you have to go, but you're a threat. You need to go real fast, because you're doing things that are impeding our survival here, because this is not a game. We got to have our candidates that come from the community. We got to make sure that we are controlling the seats that we can in predominantly Black spaces. District D, District B, District I are predominantly Black. If we only get 10% of these people in these spaces to be involved, if we only get 10% to be involved on some level, We have over 30,000 people, literally, because I run the numbers. 30,000 committed Black people. You're talking about a game changer across the board, and it's wide open. But it can't be wide open if we are not tuned into what's happening. If we're not paying attention to what's happening, if we don't understand that our enemies are playing chess, and we're trying to figure out what a marble look like, so we got to elevate our game, and we can't do that if we don't have the right people with the right understanding. And lastly, our youth. We got to create avenues by which we can train our youth to lead from a position of power. We can't do that if we don't have our own Saturday schools that's talking about all this stuff. If we don't have the critical areas of training, the food, the security, our kids got to understand that this isn't a game. You got to go to school and take it seriously for real, because there are people that want you to be a slave. Literally, they want you to be a slave. And they're moving toward you being a slave, and because you don't have any power, you can be a slave. Everything that we've gone through since we've been here has been public policy. What does that mean? That means somebody had an idea, somebody shared that idea, they got a group to promote that idea, they voted on that idea, and it was the law. Slavery was the law. Jim Crow was the law. And these things happened because we didn't have the power to stop it. What power we got now to stop anything? So it can happen again. If a law was passed tomorrow and it said if you are 51% Black, you got one Black parent, then you got to work here, you got to do this, you got to do that. What are we going to do this? I mean, a lot of us would die because they would kill us. If January 6th was Black people, they'd be dead. A lot of us will be incarcerated, but most of us will have to go along and get along because we don't have no power to stop anything. So we got to take this political training thing seriously, because that's our last legal best chance of creating the kind of change that we need. And the last two, we got to make sure that our kids are learning from Black business owners how to do what they need to do. And we need to be involved with AI and mobile app training. So I think that is the last thing. Let me show y'all this real quick, because it's important. I talked about this. It's important that we understand the magnitude of what they want to control. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but these are the 15 major. These are 50 departments of the executive branch of the country. And Project 2025 was about giving Trump or whomever won, Trump won, so giving Trump the power to control all of these departments. And what these departments do affect millions of people, right? From agriculture to commerce, business, defense, education, energy, which is the environment and whatnot, justice, criminal justice, the interior, the parks, housing, homeland security, health and human services, labor, jobs, Department of State, that's outside stuff, work with other countries, transportation, treasury, and veterans affairs. They now have control of all this. And because they have control of all this, they're cutting the funding for all of this. And they disguise what they do. They'll say too many immigrants. They'll say DEI. They'll say critical race theory. And if you're not plugged in, it's like Morpheus told Neo in the movie The Matrix. If we haven't unplugged them, we have to assume they're an agent because they haven't been unplugged yet. And because so many people haven't been unplugged, we believe all the fake news because we don't know what's what, because we haven't been properly educated as to how to understand the chessboard as it's being laid out. And when we first started doing our Project 2025 stuff in February of 2024, February 2025, people said that this wasn't real. They can't do that. It's against the law. It's a Democrat scare tactic. I mean, people were actually saying this, and they didn't think that, okay, it might be illegal now, but if you control the judges and the courts and the Supreme Court and the military, if you control everything, then what's illegal becomes legal. And what's legal can become illegal because you control everything. And when you don't vote, you allow people who aren't thinking about you to control everything. So we have to understand that the landscape in America is changing rapidly and dramatically. And those changes, again, are not pro us. If we don't start paying attention to exactly what's happening and take seriously what we're up against, if we don't start to do that in a very serious way that matters, we're simply not going to make it. And I've given you brief snippets of our reality in this country right now moving forward. Just brief snippets. Trust me when I tell you that there's a lot more to it than that. But I'm just trying to give, everybody, for the sake of time and Thursday morning breakfast, I'm trying to give everybody an understanding of why it is so important that we pay attention to what's happening. You guys have heard me talk about this magazine before. Growth for Care Digital is a digital magazine that I started last February. My first issue was, I think, 22 pages. Right now, I'm never under 90 pages because there's so much happening in the country. And of course, I have ads in here, a few of them, but most of it is information. So I have ongoing stories of things that I know our people need to understand. And those stories are ongoing because it's too important for me to take it out because it's an old issue and not have it. You got to pay attention to these things that are happening. And I'm showing you guys this because, of course, I want as many people as possible to subscribe, which is free, and pay attention because what I just shared, ain't nobody talking about that. The solutions that we're working on, ain't nobody doing that. Trying to get our people to understand the reality of what it means to have melanin in this country, on this planet. People just aren't talking about it because they either don't, it affects their money, they think it's not real or whatever. But it's easy to prove everything that I'm saying. So if we don't understand that the war is really to control your mind, because if they control your mind, they can control your body. That's a big deal. And everything that I just briefly shared is covered in almost every issue. Now, these are some of the titles. This is talking about the importance of controlling our own, having and controlling our own institutions. Anybody talking about that? The white culture that's being pushed is to have a new kind of slave labor. If they are building more and more detention camps that they say are for illegal immigrants, but they're getting rid of the illegal immigrants, who are the camps for? Who's talking about that? So if our information centers, if the people that we trust to give us the right information, if they're not sharing it, then we're not gonna have it. AI replacing hundreds of thousands of millions of jobs. I've heard people talk about it, but who's giving concrete solutions as to, okay, well, if AI is going to replace a bunch of jobs, what are we gonna do? Somebody got to be thinking about that. We have a Thursday morning breakfast is a spinoff of Tuesday morning breakfast out of Shreveport. So I always have it stuff because all of his speakers are absolutely phenomenal. This is about developing a team. If we don't have people that are thinking the same way, focus on the same thing to achieve the same goal, we're gonna lose. This is a team sport. And one of the reasons that we lose is because we don't play as a team. Our enemies will put aside their differences to make sure we don't rise. So we got to understand that whatever our differences are, we got to put that crap aside and figure out what we're going to do because, again, they're not playing games with us. So the last thing I want to show, and everything in here, of course, is something that, it's something that we need to know and realize. But the last thing I want to show is I want to show the Project 2025 stuff because I take a lot of time to lay. Oh, this is one. I think this is my oldest ongoing story. We got an issue with a predator in the school. And oh, look, he's right there. I think this is like 6-7 pages because I lay out the presentation of what we're trying to do, and I update that every month. But this Project 2025 thing, I want you guys to just see. And this comes out every week. As I've said, I'll send both of you guys. This is a video I was talking about the Epstein files. And I'll send this to both of you. This is a scrolling video that shows the top 100 people. And it is amazing to see that they're from all over the country. All over the world. And all of them got money. Old money and new money. And in some way, somehow, they're connected to the Epstein files. And we got to remember that the Epstein files is about trafficking minors for sex. That's what the slave trade was. Trafficking our people for sex and for physical exploitation. So they haven't changed what they do. We just haven't gotten hip to it yet. And if we don't understand that the same people that kidnapped us and brought us here are the same people in these Epstein files, we're gonna keep losing. And again, not to toot my own horn, and every issue, every week I have a word or term. You guys ever heard of the digital prison? You heard of that, Will? I didn't. Every week I got a new term because the language is changing.
Yes.
And again, if we don't even understand the language because it's changing, then how we it ain't gonna work. Okay, so I'm sorry, blah blah blah. Okay, so this is the Project 2025 stuff. So I went through, I don't remember, did I go today? I don't remember. Oh, I went to the government website, the White House website to get these numbers. These are the money that they're cutting out of the programs per the whole Project 2025 control thing that a lot of people saying wasn't real. So the Department of Education, the total that they want to cut out is $10 billion from the Department of Education, right? 10 billion, right? Department of Health and Human Services, the total they want to cut out is 29.3 billion. I can send this to you, Ms. Faulkner. The EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, where they want to cut out 3.9 billion. Homeland Security, 2.3 billion. Department of Justice, 2 billion. And a lot of these, not a lot of these, but some of these, they cut out the pieces that are going to help the people, but they added the pieces that are going to oppress people. Like ICE. ICE got a lot of money. The Department of Homeland Security, the money that they got to build more what do you call them? Detention centers. Those are prisons.
Yes.
They got money for that. And again, if you say that these are camps for illegals, but you're getting rid of the illegals, then who are the camps for? Us. And no matter what you look like, if you don't have a bunch of money, you part of the us, right? So the Department of Energy, Department of Housing and Urban Development, that's a lot of us. That's where we get money so that we can live in a decent house. 32 billion. So when you add up all this stuff, and it's a lot, when you add up all the things that they want to cut, it's $128 billion. So $128 billion that people used to get from our veterans to our children to our handicapped to our elderly, if $128 billion a year were helping people, and that $128 billion is no longer there to help people, what are people gonna do? So the third clip, the white guy talking about the 3 different things, the last one being they want to create their own cities that they can own and control. They know what they're doing. Very few of us are going to be on the inside of these spaces. Most of us are going to be on the outside. Have you guys ever heard of the Proud Boys?
Yeah.
You've heard of the 1%ers? You've heard of the Oath Keepers?
Yes.
These are white nationalist organizations that are very anti-Black, Jew, immigrant. You haven't seen their names in the news as of late because ICE has targeted them to hire them. Literally. If we had time, I would show you some of their marketing data, some video clips. They are actively going after these people because they know that they're going to be aggressive in going after the people who got dark skin. So they are hiring racists on purpose to go implement their plan. And if you were to compare what Hitler did and what Trump is doing, it's scary how much those things correlate and overlap. So all of these things matter. If we don't get enough of the right, and it'll never be everybody, it's never been everybody, and we don't want everybody. We got to have the right people that look like us, that are willing to work with us. And even if they don't look like us, they're willing to work with their people to do their part so that we can be allies. But we got to take care of our own house first.
Yes.
Everything that I just played for you, I think the most recent video is at least 6 months old. The most recent one, 6 months old. So that means that they're further down the road, right? So if we're not paying attention, and again, remember, for both of you guys here and everybody's online, remember, wherever you go, to interact with your people, your loved ones, your community, if those persons aren't talking about this kind of stuff, and this kind of stuff is real, then where's your group gonna be in a few months? So we have to get our heads out of the sand. We have to stop ignoring reality. We have to reach out to people who have some sense and who are willing to think a little bit about something that matters. And we got to push back against all this stuff. Because if we don't organize ourselves now and push back against all this stuff, then again, we're gonna lose it. And if we lose this time, ain't gonna be no round two. Because they are putting things in place where, again, not only if you're born poor, you're gonna die poor, but there were, as of right now, there are cases where they have arrested people for protesting and sent them to another country. This Epcot prison, ERCOT, E-R-C-O-T, you heard that prison in Venezuela, Colombia? It's a prison, it is absolutely off, ERCOT, E-R-C-O-T. They've arrested people for protesting or for having skin that's too dark, labeled them whatever the hell, and shipped them off. And despite the fact that judges have said you got to bring that person back, if they brought them back, it hadn't been as many that they've sent out there, but they don't care. So when you don't have the power to fight back when you vote for the wrong people, when you're not engaged, blah blah blah, you know you're going to lose. So we have the brother who runs our national political department, Brother Craig B. Lee, in Shreveport, Louisiana. He is running for city council in Shreveport to take over Shreveport because of his mindset, the mindset of his team, and the vision that they have moving forward. If we don't have the right kinds of people doing the same thing here in Houston, District D, District B, and District I, in Missouri City, in Prairie View, in Baytown, in every predominantly Black space around the country, I venture to say that if we don't have more Travis McGee's, if you will, more Carisha Rogers, if you will, more Ebony Rains, if we don't have those kinds of people with the right team, with the right vision in predominantly Black spaces, we're going to lose. And I'm not talking about lose 5, 10, 15 years down the road. I'm talking about lose in 2 or 3 years. Because the pace at which they're moving, they're ahead of schedule. All those cuts, those things have already happened. So we're going to feel the effects of them in a few months. And I don't care where you live. I don't care what you do for a living. Desperate people do desperate things. These people still got to eat. Yep. They're going to do what they got to do. So if we don't have that food system that we're working on, we don't have that security, it's going to be dog eat dog. And they're going to be watching from their perches because they're protected. They're safe because they've made it so. And we got to make sure that we're doing the same thing. So on that note, any questions about anything? Good. Y'all been fighter? I know, right? I know. And finally, I was kind of concerned that, okay, this is too much. But I got to start somewhere. I had to give it to you because you guys already know me, but you may not know me like this. So when we have these Thursday morning breakfast events, the people that come in and speak, we need to hear what they're saying. Yes. Because they might be one of the ones that can help us do what we need to do. Or we might realize it ain't him.
No, definitely not.
It ain't her, right? But we'll never know. And see, this is a part of that screening and vetting process. And once we realize, like when you guys have said to me, you guys have not recommended anybody speak here that I didn't reach out to, come speak here. Right. That's a part of the vetting process because you already know people. So when you guys do your part, I got to do my part. And then we have to get them to our community setting part so they can continue. So all of that has to be done, but got to be done across the board. The 15 departments that they want to cut out, we got to find a way to fill those gaps as much as we can. Of course, we can't do it all because we're not the federal government, but there's a lot that we can do, right? If hundreds of millions of dollars flow through our communities, all of them in this country, because we are giving the money away, and we find a way to keep 10% of 100 million, that's 10%. What can we do with $10 million in Sunnyside? I mean, really.
I'm from Sunnyside.
What can we do with South Park? How about that?
Yeah.
Okay, so if South, I know Will. If South Park, some people so tribal. If South Park, is that Travis South Park, Travis? Yeah,
Yeah.
Travis, right? Yeah. Sunnyside? Travis, Sunnyside.
Maybe 20. Yeah.
Whatever. So if Brother Travis, a brother that we know, we trust, we love, we respect, if Travis had a 10 million, if Travis had a $1 million budget to do some good in his super neighborhood, we have zero concern that he's gonna do good because we know Travis.
Yes.
So Travis ain't the only good person out there. If we gave Sister Carisha $1 million budget, we gave Sister Ebony Ring. You know, so there are people that are going to do the work regardless. The money is there. We just got to go get it. And then when we get it, we got to give it to the people to manage that we can trust. And again, because we know our enemies are doing that already. If we don't respond in kind, you know, we're done. Okay. So on that note, thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. Thank y'all for watching. We'll most certainly be in touch. And I appreciate everybody's time. We will see you next Thursday for next Thursday morning breakfast. I forgot who the speaker is, but I'll make a flyer. Y'all take care. Bye-bye.